Welcome back, everyone. Corey Anderson here. Ready to go over the types of bones? Let's get started. There are 5 major bones in the skeletal system. Their shape, size, and proportion of bone tissue determine their classification. The categories include long bones, short bones, flat bones, irregular bones, and sesamoid bones. Long bones are characterized by their long cylindrical body, or the shaft, with irregular or widened bony ends. They are shaped much like a beam and exhibit a slight curvature that is necessary for efficient force distribution. Long bones are composed predominantly of compact bone tissue to ensure strength and stiffness. However, they do have considerable amounts of spongy bone tissue for shock absorption. The long bones of the upper body include the clavicle, humerus, radius, ulna, metacarpals, and phalanges, whereas in the lower body there are the femur, tibia, fibula, metatarsals, and phalanges. Okay, so this is the humerus right here. The radius is right here. If you see it, the ulna is on this side. The carpals are right here that connect the wrist to your ulna and your radius. Then the metacarpals, which connect the phalanges with your carpals, and then there are your phalanges, your fingers. And then the clavicle is this bone right here. The scapula is right here, or your what is it? Your shoulder, or your the shoulder blades. Yeah, basically shoulder blades. Let's see, what is it? The femur. The femur is right here, and the patella, or your kneecap. And then you have the tibia, which is on this side, and then the fibula, which is over on this side. I have my paper right here as well. Then you have the tarsals, and then the metatarsals. The tarsals are what connect the fibula and the tibia to your ankle. And then you have your metatarsals, which connect your toe phalanges with your tarsals, and then your toe phalanges. And then you have the skull, the hyoid bone, the sternum, your ribs, your vertebrae, or your spine, and then the sacrum, which is on this side, and then the coccyx, which is otherwise your tailbone. And I'm going to go ahead and read this table. It says types of bones. It basically has the characteristics and an example of each one. So bone type, long bone. Characteristic, long cylindrical shaft and irregular or widened ends. Examples of long bones are the humerus and the femur. Short bones. Characteristic, similar in length and width and appear somewhat cubical in shape. Examples are carpals of the hand and tarsals of the feet. Bone type, flat. Characteristic, thin and protective. Examples of flat bones are the scapulae and the patella. Then there are the irregular bones. Their characteristics are unique shape and function, and an example of irregular bones are your vertebrae, or your spinal column. And then there's the sesamoid bones, which are small, often round bones embedded in a joint capsule or found in locations between a tendon, where a tendon passes over a joint. An example of a sesamoid bone is the patella. Now, anatomic features of a long bone. A detailed analysis of a long bone is useful in helping to highlight some of the properties and functions of the skeletal system. Figure 2.10 shows a cross-section of a typical long bone. In this case, the humerus. So here's a picture of the humerus, and we're going to go over the structure and function of that humerus and what happens inside of the humerus. Because your bone is a living tissue, it's a living organism, forever recreating and creating itself through the process of remodeling. So, epiphysis. Epiphysis is the end of the long bone. It is this part right here, which is mainly composed of cancellous bones and houses much of the red marrow involved in red cell production. Now, your red blood cells are all produced inside of your bones. They are also one of the primary sites for bone growth, and during growth periods can can be invulnerable to injury. Then you have the diaphysis, which is the long portion or the shaft of the long bone, which is this whole section right here. And in comparison to the bone ends is predominantly compact bone. Although the inside of the shaft is hollow, the principal role of the diaphysis is support. And then you have the epiphyseal plate. The epiphyseal plate is the region of the long bone connecting the diaphysis and the epiphysis. Okay, epiphyseal plate, you will find it is a connecting link, so it would be in this areas right here. It is the layer of subdividing cartilaginous cells in which growth in length and the diaphysis occur. Multiplying cartilaginous cells are arranged like columns of coins, which move toward the diaphysis, becoming more calcified as they go. That is how your bone grows. That is how you grow taller. Osteoblasts will eventually complete the process of bone formation. When adults stop growing, the plates will harden and fuse, so no further growth takes place. Epiphyseal plate damage before cessation of growth could result in a shorter bone. However, there is little evidence to suggest that exercise has any effect on bone length in children. Instead, exercise is likely to lead to broader, stronger bones, providing it is accompanied with appropriate diet. Now, I just want to say that if you're going to exercise, you have to eat right. There's no point in going to the gym and training your body if you're not going to feed the cells the right nutrients that it needs for proper growth. Periosteum. Periosteum forms a tough fibrous membrane that coats the bone. It contains nerves, blood vessels, and bone-producing cells. Its finer surface provides the materials for nutrition repair and facilitates growth in the diameter of the bone. It also plays a fundamental role in movement and providing the point of attachment for tendons. So periosteum is the coat around the bone that protects it and gives it more support. Medullary cavity is a space that runs down through the center of the diaphysis and contains fatty yellow marrow that is predominantly composed of adipose tissue and serves as a useful energy predominantly composed of adipose tissue and serves as useful energy reserve. Articular and hyaline cartilage covers the ends of the articulating bones. It is a hard, white, shiny tissue that, along with synovial fluid, helps reduce friction in movable synovial joints. It is fundamental for smooth joint action. So the articular cartilage, let's say your shoulder joint. When you move your shoulder, you have a lot of synovial joint fluid, and it is also covered by the articular cartilage, which helps keep the bone from grinding up on each other and creates friction. Because if you have what is this word I'm looking for? If you have a deficiency in synovial joint fluid, your bones will be rubbing up together, and that could create a lot of friction and a lot of stress within your bones, and that could intentionally lead to pain and inflammation and then a lot of problems, which is exactly what we don't want. So, short bones. Short bones are similar in length and width and appear somewhat cubical in shape. They consist predominantly of spongy bone tissue to maximize shock absorption. The carpals of the hand and tarsals of the feet fit this category. Flat bones. Flat bones are thin bones comprising two layers of compact bone tissue surrounding a layer of spongy bone tissue. These bones are involved in protection of internal structures and also provide broad attachment sites for muscles. The flat bones include the sternum, scapulae, ribs, ilium, and cranial bones. And here are some examples of each one. The carpals of the hands are an example of a short bone. The scapula, which is basically your shoulder blades, which is an example of a flat bone. And then you have the vertebral column, which is an example of an irregular bone. Irregular bones. Irregular bones are bones of unique shape and function that do not fit the characteristics of the other categories. These include the vertebrae, pelvic bones, and certain facial bones. Sesamoid bones. Sesamoid bones are small bones embedded in a joint capsule or found in locations where a tendon passes over a joint. Sesamoid bones develop within particular tendons at a site of considerable friction or tension. They serve to improve leverage and protect the joint from damage. Bone markings. The majority of all bones have specific distinguishing structures known as surface markings. These structures are necessary for increasing the stability in joints as well as providing attachment sites for muscles. Some of the more prominent and important ones will be discussed here. These surface markings can be divided into two simple categories: depressions and processes. Now basically, bone markings are basically the regions of the bones that helps the muscle connect to that bone. Like let's say the greater trochanter, for example. I don't have a picture with me, but essentially the greater trochanter is the top part of your femur, and it is a point where it has a point that sticks out and that allows the tendon of the muscle to connect to that joint, which allows the nervous system to produce electrical responses and shocks the muscle to produce movement and contract the bone to pull, which allows you to move. Okay? So, depressions. Depressions are simply flattened or indented portions of the bone. A common depression is called a fossa. An example is the supraspinous or infraspinous fossa, located on the scapulae, shoulder blades. These are attachment sites for the supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscles, respectively. So basically this part right here, there is a depression, a flattened or indented part that goes in, and that allows the supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscles to connect to the tendon to connect, because tendons are bones and muscles. Tendons are the sites where bones connect to muscles, and that's basically the part where the infraspinatus and supraspinatus muscles, which are your scapulae muscles, to attach to the scapula. Another form of depression is known as a sulcus. This is simply a groove in the bone that allows soft tissue, in other words tendons, to pass through. An example of this is an intertubercular sulcus located between the greater and lesser tubercles of the humerus, upper arm bone. This is commonly known as the groove for biceps tendon. Processes. Processes are projections protruding from the bone to which muscles, tendons, and ligaments can attach. Some of the more common processes are called process: condyle, epicondyle, tubercle, and trochanter. Examples of processes include the spinous processes found on the vertebrae, and the acromion and coracoid processes found in the scapulae. Condyles are located on the inner and outer portions at the bottom of the femur, the thigh bone, and top of the tibia, shin bone, to form the knee joint. Epicondyles are located on the inner and outer portions of the humerus to help form the elbow joint. The tubercles are located at the top of the humerus at the glenohumeral shoulder joint. There are greater and lesser tubercles, which are the attachment sites for shoulder musculature. Finally, the trochanters are located at the top of the femur and are attachment sites for the hip musculature. The greater trochanter is commonly called the hip bone. Okay, so that basically ends it for our bone types. In the next video, we're going to go over the vertebral column, which is the spine, its function, its structure, and yeah, I'll see everyone in the next video. If you like my video, please subscribe and share it. And, I'll see you soon.